I want to talk about Dune 2. Dune 2 recently released in HBO Max, and I got a chance to watch it. I'm a longtime fan of the Dune series. The series novelization I read probably 10 years ago or so, and it was probably my favorite novel series that I ever read. I don't read very often, so I do take it to heart when I do find something that I like well enough to go out and find and read through. Frank Herbert's 1984 version of the Dune itself, the Dune, what am I saying? Of the Dune movie itself, I also greatly enjoyed. Being older, looking back at some of those older movies, kind of gives me a nostalgic feel, I guess. I'm a little more kind to it, I think, than other people. But then again, I also have a wild imagination and can kind of fill in gaps myself. I don't know if other people struggle with this or not, or it's just something that I do. Either way, I enjoy a movie watching experience, and I will tend to always take away good things from a movie. The Dune remake, I absolutely loved. Part 2, of course, I did enjoy. There were a lot of things that I liked about it, but I don't want to talk about those. I want to talk about the things that I didn't like because this is the internet and this is what people do on the internet. Launching into it in no real specific way, I did try to think about this in a way that flowed, but I don't know if it's really going to work out that way or not. But either way, these are things that I noticed. First is that I don't really think that they emphasized the importance of spice well enough. There was a little bit of emphasis in the first one, and they do have some talks about it. You know, there's a lot of spice saturation in the food, yada yada, but they don't really get into why it's important. And this also kind of leads into the second point that I'm going to make, and that's about the guild not being really relevant. Either way, the importance of the spice is that it allows the guild members to space travel. Basically, space travel here is folding space. I believe that it's intergalactic. I don't know if that's well established in the books or not. I could just be my headcanon, but it's what makes sense. They have an infinite, seemingly infinite possibility to do so. And all of these planets and everything, I believe they're so many light years away that it would be impossible for them to be in one galaxy. So it has to be that way. I think actually it was discussed in one of the books. I don't think they ever touched on it in any of the movies. But either way, spice was incredibly important. And without it, you could not do space travel. It also greatly heightened human intelligence. It greatly increased human lifespans, and it was super important just to everyday life. And anybody who came in contact with it, which was a lot of the lords of the Landsrad, of the houses of the Landsrad, ate it pretty often. Again, without the guild, there is no real space travel. I could be confused and be misremembering the 1984 version or kind of mixing it in with the books, but I do remember that they had some pretty critical points. The Bene Gesserit and the guild themselves seemed to have ran pretty much all of society from behind the scenes. Granted, I know there was an emperor, he had a lot of power, but they were the real players. They kind of took care of everything and guided all of the political factions and the way everything worked. The guild especially, because if they decided that you couldn't space travel anymore, there was nothing you could do about it. So having them not be there, I think took away a little bit from the movie itself. I understand that they got away with it, and I think it kind of worked out. But as a fan, I felt that them not being there was sort of a disservice. The next thing I wanted to discuss, was the lack of emphasis on Paul's power. Paul actually did obtain a great amount of power when he drank the water of life. He had a lot of prescience even just before that, just by the spice saturation in the food he ate when he got onto Arrakis. He could see the future, and after the water of life, he could essentially see the past as well, through generations of his bloodline, the same way that the Bene Gesserit did. I think that this is important to note because it really helps you understand who Paul is and the decisions that he makes. While I'm on the discussion about the water of life and stuff, I feel like they really missed an opportunity to emphasize just how deadly it is. Paul only took one drop of the water of life, and it laid his ass out for 3 weeks. Barely, barely noticeably still alive. I think, like how Jessica said, even in the remake, he could barely see lifelines. You could barely see anything that could give away that he was alive, and he overcame it. But while he was there, he was in a trance like the entire time, and he was looking at different futures and observing different possibilities and different outcomes that he could sort of see. He could choose which path to go down. He kind of knew overall what was going to be going on. I think they explained it. This could be, again, just making things up, but I believe he said that he saw it the same way as standing on top of a dune in the desert. You could look out across the dunes. You could see the peaks of so many of them, but you couldn't see down into the valleys of them. So he knew the overall outcomes and he knew the path to take. He just didn't really kind of know what went on in between. The last thing that I want to talk about, and the thing that I think probably impacted me the most, is his relationship with Chani. Chani was, well, not well versed in the books. She didn't have a huge role, but I will tell you that Chani was ride or die. She was down for Paul, and she was ready to go. She was a Fremen, and she was a believer. I don't know that I like that they did this with her character. I could see there being some reality to it, but again, like I said, with Paul's power, it was real, and you could see it, and he knew things that people shouldn't know, and he kind of knew what to do, and people understood that, and they knew how powerful he was. Especially, like, all the people that were really close to him could tell that. I think that her kind of storming off at the end without any real explanation could potentially damage the third movie. And I did check, there is going to be a third movie coming out, but I'm interested to see how this is resolved, because in the third movie, they should have children. He was never going to stay with Princess Aurelia. Chani was going to be his wife the entire time. Princess Aurelia is political. It's a political move, and it's what's going to allow him to maintain his emperorship as he moves forward. Chani has 2 kids. Actually, I take that back. Chani has, I think, 3 kids. The first one is assassinated, and the second and third ones, the third one's not super important, but the second one is Duke Leto II, and he becomes the God Emperor of Dune. And that's when the books really take a turn into the sci-fi territory and become really great. But yeah, Chani super loved him. And that's really it for the things I wanted to get off my chest about Dune. Again, I did like it. It was a good movie. I don't know that I really want to watch it again. I do want to watch it with my brother-in-law. He tends to be my my soundboard when it comes to certain things. And Dune was, I believe he introduced me to Dune. Either way, we've nerded out about it a whole bunch over our lives, and I definitely want to get into it with him. So maybe here soon one day I can do that. And yeah, that's it for that one. GG, have fun. See you later.